Ladies, gentlemen, pro skaters, wives.
They realise she has an actual job, right?
I'm Bandit, just recovering from a really bad cold, and today we're going to be changing yet another cast. This time it's the Australian Survivor All-Star cast, where legends like Sean, Brooke and David could be seen alongside definitely all-star tier players like Tarzan, Jackie and Zachary. Nonetheless, we'll be taking that cast and in one swift video brutally eliminating them. It's kind of like David's blindside on Daisy.
Daisy. 2 votes Moana, 1 vote Daisy.
Normal rules apply, like 50-50 gender ratios, casting people that apply to the theme as well as possible, and only players from season 1 to 4 of the reboot can be cast. This last part is tough, considering only 95 players appeared on Australian Survivor at this point, and without the original cast, it means I only have a pool of 71 people to choose from. Moreover, much like the original All-Star season, I limited each season to having a maximum of 7 players from them. In spite of this, I feel I've made a genuinely solid cast that perhaps looks even stronger than the original All-Stars. Firstly, let's talk about winners. In All-Stars there were 2 winners, Jericho and Shane, that won season 2 and 3 respectively. And although I obviously can't use them on this cast, I replaced them with Christy and Pia, the first and 4th winners. For me, it's almost jarring to not see the first winner return for an All-Star season, and while I acknowledge Christy likely didn't return because of the feedback on her first game, it at least allows me to put her on this cast. Plus, love or hate her game, you have to admit her final tribal council is very strong. And then there's Pia, who again is an obvious addition to the cast. She had a fantastic social game in Champions vs Contenders 2, with her even convincing Baden to take her to the end over Harry, someone he spent far more of the game with.
These guys have played the game together and they've made the same moves, but Harry is a little more strategic. If you put them both in the final 2, it will be harder for Baden to own some of those moves.
Harry.
Beyond this, there's also the runners-up. Much like the winners, we saw 2 return in Lee and Sean, Australian Survivor's biggest heroes.
There's the honourable heroes who led with their hearts.
Thanks for cramping my style, Jonathan. But with these 2 gone, I replaced them with the runners-up in the other 2 seasons. They of course are Tara from season 2 and Baden from season 4. Now, unlike the hero narrative Jonathan had with Sean and Lee, Tara was anything but a hero on season 2, with quite a few people finding her antics annoying. But she fits the villain mold really well in my opinion, and is one of the few Australian women to fully have this megalomaniac persona. While Baden was more neutral rather than a hero or villain per se, he was a perpetual underdog in season 4, even from the first vote out.
Second person voted out of Australian Survivor. Laura. That's 7 votes, that's enough. You need to bring me a torch.
Plus, I also find him to be really funny in the confessional booth, which is a great quality in a Survivor contestant, especially one which is returning for an All-Star season. Now on to the pre-merge boots, everyone's favourite. While I do agree with casting pre-merge boots like AK or Phoebe that showed a lot of potential, but just straight up got a raw deal, there were others that, well, how do I put this nicely, weren't exactly all-star material. I mean, I think it says a lot when there are more original pre-merge boots than merge boots at the final 9, with most of these pre-merge boots having little to no respect from the jury. While I do mostly stray away from casting pre-merge boots in these casting videos, the fact that Australian Survivor casted pre-merge boots means I believe I'm justified to also do this. Therefore, I picked one pre-merge boot from each season, with each individual being someone I could genuinely see do well on the return. First from Season 1 was Craig, who was eliminated just 2 rounds before the merge. With him reaching merge, had Phoebe not gone straight Super Saiyan with her idol.
Jonathan, the tribe decided who was going home tonight, but I didn't really get to weigh in on that decision. So, I'm just gonna weigh in on it now.
Tenth person voted out from Australian Survivor, Craig.
I mean, this was straight up some anime protagonist moment. How on earth was Craig supposed to stop it? But in 2016, Craig was an extremely charismatic, strategically savvy individual who was surprisingly amazing at challenges. He's a full package in terms of potential for a strong run in All-Stars. In the same vein, I'm kind of cheating a bit, but even without his blood versus water appearance, I still would have picked him, and that's Mark. Now we all know Mark has the tools to win the game on the return, because this happened. But even so, you could tell production really liked him with the nice military man persona. Plus, I'm not going to let production off the hook. If you're them, and you have to pick between Mark and Tarzan for who to cast in the pre-merge meal slot, let's think about this rationally. Would you rather pick the man so dominant with his would-be wife, the tribe felt the need to throw challenges to get Sam and subsequently him out, or Tarzan, who idled himself out? After this, in Season 3, we have more of a forgotten individual, but during Season 3, she had a roller coaster of a game, and this was Tegan. Now Tegan for the first bit of the game wasn't the most interesting of people. She was just this mum figure who rode the middle alongside Heath. Then Benji happened. After Benji blindsides Tegan, she's placed on this purgatory and beats Anita, thus causing her storyline of revenge on pretty much everyone for blindsiding her. If this wasn't enough, she is then voted out again at the swap, only to have her torch being snuffed, halted by a twist where the opposing tribe can choose to save her, wherein Robbie and Benji flip their votes and finally eliminate her once and for all. Really, for such a strong storyline from a massive underdog player, further perpetuated by the fact, much like Craig, she was eliminated 2 votes before the merge, slots are nicely in. The final pre-merge boot comes from Season 4, and I am taking liberties with this being a Dreamcast, because I picked Roscoe. Now, as far as I could tell, Ross was still injured after the rope incident in Season 4 by the time for All Stars. But had it not been for his shock medevac, he would have made it to the merge, as he was eliminated literally the round before, with no one bringing up his name. In fact, Ross was in a very strong swing position, and likely would have retained his positioning alongside the female champions. And considering his connections to Abby, Harry, David and Luke, Ross had strong winner potential that season, so seeing him on All Stars would have gave him the opportunity to have his full potential realised. Then comes the debate for Luke, and whether he's allowed to be casted for All Stars. At this point in time, Luke Toki was the only individual before All Stars to appear on 2 seasons, meaning he could have got burnt out or led to viewers being burnt out by watching him. But I'll still watch him. Even in Season 4, we saw he was willing to change up gameplay strategies from hyper to relaxed, plus his story is easily something that could be extended into a 3rd season because of how incredible it is. In regards to casting, I wasn't sure whether you count Luke as a Season 2 player, his original season, a Season 4 player, the last season he played, or both. So I just picked the latter, meaning there are only a maximum of 6 other Season 2 and 4 players cast. On the topic of Christy and Craig, I also casted a few more Season 1 players. First is Elle, who was a person rather surprising not to see on All Stars. In my opinion, she played one of the best, if not the best, non-winning games in Australian Survivor that the show has ever seen, and the edit really didn't do it justice. She was a figurehead for the Majority Alliance alongside Brooke, Flick and Lee, with extremely strong social and physical skills, allowing her to survive for so long. Had her or Lee won final immunity, which they should have, considering they combined won 5 immunities, then Elle would have won the game. After that, I included Matt, who came off as very unaware with his position in the game, as he always assumed he was in charge of the majority, but was expendable and made social blunders with Brooke and Flick that caused him to obtain that position. But I wanted merged male representation in Season 1, and with Sam and Connor only fighting him for that spot, I decided to add Matt. Plus, he's a massive fan of the game and has for sure learned from his experience. Just, stop bringing up World War III, Matt. Please. I'm begging you.
World War III has finally erupted. And that's good for me. World War III has finally erupted.
But I also felt the need to round out Season 1 representation with Jenna Louise, a lady criminally under-edited in 2016, considering her run at the end. She was one of the biggest underdogs that season, who was the only real challenge for the majority group to eliminate with a great understanding of the game. Like at the final 9, she probably gets out Christie if Matt hadn't supposedly flipped his vote at the last minute. She was very solid in all 3 assets in the game, and if nothing else, my Jenna Louise stepped on a bee. For Season 2, I added Jared, another individual criminally under-edited and underrated. He was at the top of Samatau and unchallenged in his position, with AK even willing to play an idol on him. We also saw a ton of personality from him in the few episodes he was shown, such as his fun personality, as well as his friendly rivalry with Jericho, that continued even into the final tribal.
Like, just so we know that we have each other's back, like, can you just, like do like an underline under your vote or something tonight?
Oh, my
so
vote.
just so it's not.
Oh, yeah.
We would send a message to each other with an underline to show our trust was there. Now, you voted for me that night, and to add salt to the wound, you underlined my name. What goes around comes around. I'm going to be sending a message to you with an underline as well.
Winner of Australian Survivor, Jericho!
Once again, Jared showing how much of a beast he is. On top of that, he also had a very strong personality in Season 2, in being a misfit that could translate well on a return. Then I just added the final 9 to 6 boots, starting with Tessa. How was Tessa not on All Stars? She survived elimination she shouldn't have, was the last standing of her alliance, was in a swing position at the final 9 on that tribe, and was eliminated in an insane 3-2-2-2 vote, which is perhaps one of the most chaotic voting results we've seen in the Survivor franchise. Plus, she played hard by eliminating key threats like Amy and Henry, plus having her and Tara on the same cast would be fun. Then we have Sarah, who again probably should have been on All Stars. She was a beauty, but also had the brains, allowing her to survive a Sanga 3.0, despite being on the bottom with Peter. Her ally also abandoning her. She was extremely likeable, had lots of agency, survived a ton of tribals, and was also one of the 3 people responsible for Tessa's elimination. Now that's all-star material. Finally, rounding out the Season 2 cast with our 7th and final pick, we have Ziggy. Ziggy was an absolute beast on Australian Survivor 2017, and is probably one of the best female challenge competitors we've seen on the show. I say she's right up there with Brooke and Shay. Much like Sarah, Ziggy was rarely on the bottom and had a lot of agency on her Samatau tribe. She had such great social skills that she was given a dual idol, the most powerful advantage in Australian Survivor up to that point, that gave her immunity and nullified another individual's idol. Plus, as covered in my Genius Moves video, she's able to effectively lie about the advantage she got.
Walking back to camp, I was going over and over and over again what I was going to tell my tribe. I'm not allowed to tell you exactly what it is because if I say it, then it's void. What I can tell you is that I can't use it myself.
You give it to the person.
I can give it anytime I want, and it expires when there's 5 people left.
I believe every word she's saying. It's exciting and scary that she has this power to give somebody an advantage in the game.
Plus, she's an Olympian, meaning on a cast with former sports stars, she can form strong bonds and likely make a deep run just as in Season 2. Then there's Champions vs Contenders, my personal favourite season, where I included Brian Lake. Now there were outside factors preventing his return in All Stars, but on this cast he's a perfect fit. Much like David Jeanette, he isn't afraid to be the villain and adopted the role extremely well, being an individual that you love to hate but was extremely entertaining. I can confidently say Survivor Champions vs Contenders wouldn't have been the same without his antics. As well as Brian, I picked Monica. Now Monica wasn't the biggest presence in Champions vs Contenders, and I greatly considered dropping her for Fenella, especially considering Sarah has the good looking but strategically savvy female archetype, but I still kept Monica. Really, I feel Monica is less emotional and therefore more strategic than Fenella and has more variance to her game, making her return more interesting. Plus, I don't think she gets enough credit for the final 8 move where she tricks Benji, one of the biggest players of the season, to thinking he has her on his side.
So, the champions stuck together. You know, they pulled the wool over my eyes. I didn't see it coming, so the idol is still in my bag right now.
So to be the reason the biggest player in the game got voted out, with an idol in his pocket, is enough of a resume for me to add her to the cast. Then we have the person I was just talking about, Benji. Somehow again not on All Stars, despite essentially being the entire mid portion of that season. He was a scrappy underdog with many rivalries from Matt Rogers to Tegan, to Matt Rogers to Sam, to Matt Rogers. But he performed perhaps one of the most brutal moves ever seen on the show by him completely manipulating and outplaying Sean.
But I'm playing it for Matt.
No. Don't play for Matt.
Alright.
No, play for you.
Okay, I'll play it for myself.
Third member of our jury, Matt.
Like only Sam stealing Jesse's idol could rival this level of betrayal. Ultimately, Benji had an incredible underdog run, mixed with him blindsiding the power player of the season with an idol in his pocket in an incredible 5-4 vote. Then finally there's Sam. I'm going to be honest, I love him. Despite his limited screen time, he was hilarious almost every time he was shown, and those few occasions he wasn't being funny was because he was rattling off very impressive strategic messages. Without Nick, AK or Harry on the cast, the sneaky villainous male archetype opened up a lot more and left room for Samuel. He's going to be a great villain, but a more strategic and cunning one rather than Brian or even Matt. So he's a welcomed addition. Season 4 only had 5 people representing its season on the original All Stars, which was surprising considering the merge was stacked, and some of the casting choices were odd coming into All Stars. I've already covered Pia and Baden, the first and second place finishers, weirdly not being on the cast, but we also have to cover Janine. She was a massive force on Season 4, so not seeing her on the original cast was jarring. Much like the big 3 of Ethan, Lex and Tom on All Stars, Pia, Abby and Janine felt like this equivalent coming into Australian All Stars. Janine was a strategic beast that flipped her position from nearly being voted out to top dog in the span of one tribal. With this momentum, she controlled the game, even to the point Dirty Harry was calling her the godmother, and had such an amazing villainous persona. After that, we've got to have Sean. I know it's because they supposedly couldn't get Sean, but Sean is basically a better version than John in almost every way, except without the low-key addiction to chicken parms. His feud with David made up the first half of the season and was really fun to watch, with both men trying to get each other out, but through idols, splitting votes or winning immunities, they just simply couldn't finish the job until the jury phase began. Sean was one of the most strategic minds on the Contenders tribe, and it was clear he was the glue that held them together. Plus, like Jonathan in season 42, the dude is an absolute unit and was incredible at challenges, making him, therefore, extremely strong in all facets of the game. Finally, if you've been watching this channel for a while, you know I'm a massive fan of him, but it's Andy. Much like Mark, Andy has returned for Blood vs Water, a season that happened after All Stars. Despite being the first boot of the season, he proved yet again to be extremely entertaining on the return, and showed more personality in one episode than Mel, Jordan and Michelle in that entire season. He got a raw deal on season 7, being only one of 3 returnees, 4 if you count Sandra, but on this All-Stars cast, he almost certainly would have made a deeper run due to his threat level being lowered with all the massive threats alongside him. As stated in Blood vs Water, his All-Star move is his beyond the grave targeting of David. I'll let you explain further, Andy.
What everybody seems to remember is my parting words to my good buddy Dave.
Thanks, guys. Dave has an idol.
So he has a strong move to prove why he's All-Star worthy, plus a massive Survivor fan, and you'd know he'd be itching at the opportunity to make big moves on an All-Star season. But that's the video, how did I do? This is the entire cast discussed. Apologies if the format was a little odd, I was trying to shake it up slightly for this video. But what would your cast be? Let me know down in the comments, or, if you don't feel like doing that, let me know who you think would win this theoretical All-Star season with my cast. I'm just looking for comments, man, they really help with the algorithm. On top of this, do the usual stuff like the video and subscribe. You know the drill by now. And peace!